Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world together: movies, movie news, streaming, some television, all sorts of good stuff. And I gotta tell you guys, I'm kind of psyched. Tomorrow, you guys know I'm a big UFC fan. I've been into MMA for a very long time, and tomorrow is a fight that I've been looking. I can't remember. I'm not saying it's my most anticipated fight of all time. I'm not saying that, but it's been a while since I've been as excited for a fight as I am about Nurmagomedov versus Gaethje tomorrow. This is going to be one of the great fights. For those of you who don't know much about MMA, Khabib Nurmagomedov, he is simply the best hand-to-hand combat fighter in the world. He is the man. He is the undefeated, unchallenged champion. He's never lost a minute of a fight, let alone ever lost a fight. But he's fighting a guy tomorrow who I call the maestro of violence. I think Joe Rogan first penned that phrase, the maestro of violence, and a dude by the name of Gaethje, Justin Gaethje is a beast. I think Khabib, the champion, wins this fight, but this is the first time I've ever gone into a Khabib fight where I thought he could lose. It's legitimately possible he could lose. I still am picking him, but anyway, there's that little something I'm excited about. I just wanted to get that out and say I'm excited about it. But hey, listen, guys, we got a couple things to talk about here on this Friday, but we're going to spend most of this Friday just taking your live questions. It's going to be casual, laid back. I do have a couple things I want to touch on before we get into live questions, but that's what we are going to do here today. All right. We do have a few things to talk about here. I want to let you guys know, though, how do we normally pick all of our main topics on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them. So whenever you come across a piece of news or a story that you think we should make a main topic here, simply go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's totally free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your topic or question featured here on the John Campea Show. And also want to remind you guys, if you haven't done so already, why don't you just take a quick second and click on that subscribe button, become a subscriber to the YouTube channel, keeping you up to date on all the stuff that we've got going on here. Okay, guys, couple of things I want to just touch on quick before we get into some heavier stuff. I'm not going to do a full review right now, but Borat's subsequent movie film, or Borat 2, which is much easier to call it, came out last night on Amazon. So I sat down and watched it last night. And I got to tell you, I don't know that I think that this one is as good as the first one. Remember, the first Borat film is one of only 7 or 8 films I've ever given like a perfect 10 out of 10 to on my first viewing, back when I used to give movie scores. So to say I don't think it's quite as good as the first one is by no means casting shade on it. I got to tell you guys, I was alternating back and forth. I put up a tweet about this last night, but I was alternating back and forth between laughing myself hysterically and having to literally stand up off the couch, cover my face, and go, because what was happening on screen was so uncomfortable. Kind of like the way The Office, there's a lot of scenes in The Office where it's like, oh my God, this is so uncomfortable, and you have to look away. I was alternating back and forth between laughing hysterically and having to look away because it was so uncomfortable. How Sacha Baron Cohen pulled off making this movie essentially completely in secret. Like they literally kept this thing completely under wraps. They kept it completely secret, and somehow, some way, Sacha Baron Cohen was able to go out secretly and make this movie. How there were still some people, if you had asked me if it was possible for him to pull off another one of these, I would have said no, because Borat's so famous now. And sure enough, there are a couple of moments in the movie where they show that it's hard for him to do Borat now because everybody knows who Borat is. But they were still able to find some people who had no idea who he was or what he was doing. Sometimes he was Borat in disguise, but it's hard to explain. You have to see it. It is ripplingly funny. Again, much like the first one, it's very poignant. Again, I'm not going to go into a full review right now. I'm going to do a review video probably a little bit later, but I just wanted to touch on that really quick, that I thought that was pretty excellent. If you guys haven't seen Borat, and if you like, I'll say this too. If you are somebody who did not enjoy the first Borat movie, don't even bother. I mean, honestly, and not all films for all people, all films subjective. If you didn't like the first Borat, and there's nothing wrong with that if you didn't like the first one, if you didn't like the first one, don't even bother with this one, because there's no way you're going to like it. If you didn't like the first one, there's no way you're going to like the second one. If you did appreciate the first one, I think there's a very strong chance you're going to really appreciate this one as well. The scene in the for those of you who watched it, all I'll say is the scene in the doctor's office. Oh my God. Now they showed a trailer. They showed in the trailer. They showed a bit of that scene where he's at the doctor's office with his daughter and he's saying, I feel bad because I put baby in her. I want you to take the baby out of her. Well, for those of us who've seen the movie, we know what he's talking about. And it was just so funny. I got to say this, the doctor that's in the office that they were like kind of pranking, he handled it. I gotta say, having a guy sitting in front of you saying, I put this baby in my daughter, the way he was really nonchalant, I was actually really impressed with the doctor. I'm just gonna say that for those of you who've seen the movie. I was very impressed with the doctor. Anyway, that being said, Borat's subsequent movie film, I do recommend it if you enjoyed the first one. I'll do more of a full review another time. All right, guys. Hey, listen, we only got one. It's a Friday, slow news day. We've got one main topic here to talk about here today. So let's get into that main topic, shall we? And today's main topic gets sent into us by Preston Bell, who writes, Hey, John. News just broke on Variety about Simon Kinberg signing on to be the writer and producer of the upcoming Battlestar Galactica movie. What are your thoughts on the X-Men producer taking on the Battlestar Galactica project at Universal? Thanks, and have a terrific weekend. All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, listen, there's a lot of Battlestar Galactica going around right now. Because as a matter of fact, Peacock is currently working on a new Battlestar Galactica series. That's sort of a reboot, but not really a reboot of Ronald D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica. I don't know how that's going to work, but it's being showrun by the guy who created Mr. Robot. So that gets a lot of people excited. And so they've got a series coming. That's cool. This is something completely different. They are actually now making a feature film out of it. And I got to say, I'm thrilled. I've always wanted to see Battlestar Galactica on the big screen. All due respect, my all-time favorite show is that Ronald D. Moore Battlestar Galactica. And for a TV series, particularly a sci-fi TV series, they did a really good job with what they had as far as visual effects go and things like that. They did a very good job. But it was still television visual effects. I mean, some of the best visual effects on television at the time, but it was still television VFX, right? I've always wanted to see like a full, like a 2 hour and 15 minute movie version of Battlestar Galactica. And I've always thought that would be great. And they're going to be doing it, and it's going to be produced and written by Simon Kinberg. Now, Simon's not going to direct the film, but they have announced that he's going to produce it. And I think this is great news. Because while it is true that Simon Kinberg has produced things like Fantastic Four, while that is true, and there have been a couple like that, Simon Kinberg as a producer has also been in charge of shepherding some of the best stuff in movies, and not just comic book movies. I mean, this is just a taste of a bunch of the stuff that Simon Kinberg has produced. I would argue that 3 of the projects on this list here are on the top 10 list of the greatest comic book movies ever made. With Deadpool, he also did Deadpool 2, by the way, Logan, X-Men. A lot of people, now I'm not a huge fan of the Legion series, but I know a lot of you guys love the Legion series. He's the producer on the Legion series, but it's not just comic book movies that he's done. He did that incredible, one of the best films of the year that he worked with Ridley Scott on for The Martian. I am not personally a huge fan of Murder on the Orient Express, but a lot of people loved it, and it's got its sequel coming out here shortly, hopefully, fingers crossed, with Murder on the Orient Express. You guys know how much I love that Cinderella movie that he did with Kenneth Branagh. So he's partnered with Kenneth Branagh on a couple of occasions. But yes, absolutely, while Simon Kinberg has done Fantastic Four, as a producer also, I would argue his track record is pretty fantastic. he's got a pretty fantastic track record overall. Does he have some blemishes on his resume? Absolutely. Everybody does. But I thought when you look at his ability to work with certain filmmakers, to orchestrate and shepherd certain properties, he's got a great track record. And for him to step in, you got to understand Battlestar Galactica is a very dear and precious property to me. As a little kid, I would watch the reruns of the original Battlestar Galactica with Lauren Green, Richard Hatch, Dirk Benedict. I used to love that show. And then the Ronald D. Moore version, the updated one with Edward James Olmos as Adama, became my favorite show of all time. My absolute number one, without question, favorite television show of all time. And so the idea of a major motion picture, I'm going to be very picky as a fan about what type of person can we see in there. But I got to tell you, all honesty, Fantastic Four notwithstanding, I think as a producer, getting a guy like Simon Kinberg in there with his track record, I think is great news. Now, of course, it's going to raise the question of who are they going to get to direct this? Because Simon Kinberg has said that he's not eyeing on directing this himself. Getting in a director in place is going to be a very key thing. And we'll have to probably wait a while to see who they're going to get on board to direct. But I'm still very excited about this. Listen, one of the great things about Battlestar Galactica, the thing about BSG that sets it aside from almost all other sci-fi, is the story really isn't meant to be revolving around sci-fi. The story revolves around its deep mythology. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about Battlestar Galactica, let me give you a quick Cole's Notes here, okay? Just a quick 30 seconds Cole's Notes. All right. All of humanity are broken into 12 tribes. They call them the 12 tribes of Kobol, and there's a planet for each of those tribes. There's Caprica and all these other things. All, by the way, consequently, the names of all the different worlds in the human colonies, they call them the colonies, the 12 colonies, are named after or at least very, very reminiscent of zodiac sign names, right? Now, at some point in the history of the 12 colonies, they get AI to a certain point that they create a race of robotic beings called Cylons. The Cylons turn against them, okay? The Cylons turn against them at some point, and there's a civil war that breaks out. The Cylons in the new series, they reach a peace agreement with humanity and the Cylons go away. But in the new TV series, Ronald D. Moore's, the Cylons come back, invade the 12 colonies, and destroy the 12 colonies. And now all that's left of all of humanity is this ragtag fleet with one warship. What the last remaining warship, it's a Battlestar, and it's called the Battlestar Galactica, under the command of, at the time, Commander Adama, who then becomes Admiral Adama, Edward James Olmos. And the basic gist is this: within their mythology, within their legends of the 12 colonies of Kobol, there is a legend of a lost 13th tribe. And the name of that lost 13th tribe is Earth. And so the Battlestar Galactica under Adama gets this ragtag fleet of all that's remaining of humanity, and they go out on a search. Number one, trying to keep ahead of the Cylons. But number two, are searching for this mythological lost 13th tribe called Earth. Now, what's really cool for somebody like me, maybe not for you, maybe this is a little bit nerdy, but for somebody like me who, I'm a theology buff, right? Myself. So the thing is, the whole mythology of Battlestar Galactica also has direct biblical parallels, like the 12 tribes of Israel, about the legend of the lost 13th tribe of Israel, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of this stuff in Battlestar Galactica is rooted in biblical stuff as well, so you got zodiac signs, you got biblical stuff, you got all this stuff wrapped up into this story of Battlestar Galactica. It stays incredibly character focused and all this jazz. Now, I like the fact that Peacock is doing a new series. Apparently, now this might not be completely accurate information. What I'm hearing, and it may not be accurate, is that the series will not be connected to the movie. They're just two new iterations of Battlestar Galactica, fine. But here's the interesting thing. Can you do Battlestar Galactica as a one-shot movie? Can you do Battlestar Galactica as a one-shot movie? That's going to be challenging, because when you understand the amount of mythology in it, all the characters, because there's a lot of significant characters, even more so if you go to the Ronald D. Moore one as opposed to the original one with Lauren Green. There's a lot of significant characters, deep mythology. Do you just, skip over introducing the 12 colonies of Kobol? Do you just skip over that and just go right to we're just going to assume, we're going to start the movie assuming that the attack had already happened, and we're just going to jump right to the fact that they're already off in space? Okay, I guess you could do that. I don't know, but that is going to raise an interesting question. But I got to say, for me, once again, I am all on board with Simon Kinberg coming on to produce. I may not have been as on board if he was coming on to produce and direct. I'm looking forward to his next movie. What is it called? The 355, the one he's doing with Lupita Nyong'o. That I'm looking forward to. That's his next directorial effort. I think that's great. I think I would have been a little bit nervous if he was trying to direct another giant, huge tentpole film like a Battlestar Galactica. But simply coming on as a producer, when you look at his track record and some of the crap that he's been involved with as a producer, I think this is great news. As a big Battlestar Galactica fan, I am all on board for this. Question is for you guys. What do you think about this? We're going to get a lot of Battlestar Galactica in the next couple of years. We got the Peacock series, and now we're getting the movie series. Can be produced and written by Simon Kinberg, which I think is good news, but maybe you find out, maybe you're a little bit apprehensive about that. Jump down into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, and by the way, let's not even talk about Caprica. I didn't like the Caprica series. With that down, let's move over now and spend the rest of our show today just taking your live comments and questions. How do you get a live comment or question on the show? Well, it's really simple. You simply use the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video. You can just click on it there, or you can enter it in manually at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's within reason and if it's on topic. And also, you're going to be supporting the show at the same time. And all of us here at the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you very much for that support, guys. Okay, without any further ado, let's get over and start getting into it. We're going to start things off here with, who are we starting off with? We're starting off with Sharquez, who writes, I know you say the smart thing for streaming services is to do release week by week, yes, but customers love to binge. Some customers, not all customers. I know I love to binge, but not everybody loves to binge, but a lot of us do. What are your thoughts on how HBO Max released Raised by Wolves with 3 episodes every week? I think it's a happy medium. I don't. I disagree. Here's the thing. Some place like Hulu, for example, and Amazon did this with The Boys recently, where they'll launch a series or launch a season with a couple of episodes at once and then go week to week, right? Here's the problem. Everybody complains, I do too, by the way. Everybody complains about like Netflix recently, right? That Netflix cancels shows so fast. That Hilary Swank show that a lot of people like called Away, they just canceled it after 1 season. The Dark Crystal, which is one of the best things to be on, the new Dark Crystal series, was one of the absolute best things to be on Netflix. They canceled it after 1 season. Rob will often talk about how Netflix doesn't give a show a chance to breathe, a chance to find its footing, to really gain its audience, and they pull the plug on them too fast. I'm going to tell you right now, the reason that happens is because they drop the shows all at once. When you look at Mandalorian, now this is a bit of an extreme example, but at least makes the point. When you look at Mandalorian, it launched its first episode and everybody talks about it. And then a week later, they launch the next episode and everybody talks about it again. And so people hear, oh, you're talking about this Mandalorian show. I hadn't watched it. Hey, we're only going into episode 3. Go get caught up. It's on Disney+. So they get caught up. And then there's another full week of everybody talking about it and building buzz and building buzz. And week after week after week, idiots like me do a weekly recap of Mandalorian. Idiots like a bunch of other people out there talk about it again. And then the next week comes and we do it all again. And for months, the main topic of conversation of everybody is Mandalorian for months. And therefore, for months, it has an opportunity for buzz to catch the ears of people who hadn't checked it out yet and to find its grounding and to find its audience. Now, again, I understand Mandalorian is Star Wars, so that's an extreme situation, but still it makes the point. Whereas The Dark Crystal dropped, they dropped all the episodes at once, pretty much ensuring that only people who were already pretty excited about watching Dark Crystal were going to talk about it and we're going to watch it. Because 5 days after The Dark Crystal dropped, nobody was talking about it anymore. Nobody was talking about it anymore. And so it didn't have the benefit of 2 months worth of constant buzz and chatter and talk of people talking about Mandalorian over and over and over and over again. Dark Crystal didn't get that. They dropped it all once. If you weren't somebody who was already looking forward and curious about watching it, you missed it because 5 days after it came out, nobody was talking about it anymore because it was done. It was over. So it never got a chance to find its audience. It never got a chance to see if word of mouth can really spread. It never got that chance. Now, sometimes, like in the case of Stranger Things, it can work. But there have been so many Netflix shows that were great, but were never given that air to breathe. And there's a reason why The Boys Season 2 destroyed the viewership of The Boys Season 1. They went week to week. I'm telling you, that's the primary reason why the ratings on The Boys Season 2 blew the ratings for The Boys Season 1 out of the water. It's because it went week to week. People kept talking about it and kept talking about it and kept talking about it. So, do I think something like stretching out slightly a series like Raised by Wolves, where, by the way, I'm not sure Raised by Wolves did drop 3 episodes every week. Did they? I know they dropped multiple episodes in a couple of weeks. I really didn't notice the pattern, to be honest. So you could be totally right. But could like dropping 2 or 3 episodes a week? Well, maybe, but again, you're robbing yourself. Now suddenly, instead of, 2.5 months of buzz, you're getting 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks of buzz. You're cutting your buzz literally by a third. You're cutting your runway by at least 2/3, right? So I don't mind the idea of coming out and launching with 2 or 3 episodes. Although, like in the case of The Boys, that meant instead of having 8 weeks of talking about The Boys, we only had 5. But still, I don't mind that as much. But like week after week, releasing 3 episodes every week, I think you're shooting yourself in the foot. I do. I think you're shooting yourself in the foot a little bit. But anyway, next time, a really good Netflix show, because everybody was raving about Away. I never watched it myself, but everybody was raving about it. Or Dark Crystal, or one of your other favorite shows on Netflix, and they pull the plug on it early. That's why. I'm telling you, that's the main culprit why. But that's just my point of view. That's just my point of view. All right, let's move on here. Next up, Hector Fournier writes, with the original production cost of Justice League at $300 million, and with the additional $70 million for the new cut, could this technically be one of the most expensive productions in movie history? Yes, but there's a few caveats to that. There's a little asterisk you got to put beside that. Remember, Justice League's budget was not $300 million. It wouldn't have been close to that had Warner Brothers not made Joss Whedon reshoot a ton of it and kind of remake a lot of the film. If Warner Brothers hadn't have done that, then you're looking at a movie that probably had a $200 million budget or somewhere around there, right? The only reason the original theatrical Justice League came in at $300 million was because they shot the movie and then Warner Brothers said, hey, Joss, we want you to go and reshoot most of it again. That's why it came in at $300 million. So it's not like a normal circumstances. Now, on top of that, you're adding all this new radical re-envisioning of it, as the head of Warner Media said. We talked about that yesterday. A radical reimagining of it that in his own words, the head of Warner Media said that Zack is just building right now. You're adding another $70 million. So yes, if this was one movie and it cost $370 million to make, yeah, that would be ridiculously dumb and idiotic, and it would by far be the most expensive movie ever made. But again, it comes with some caveats. They shot the film. Then they reshot the film, and now they're practically reshooting it again. $70 million worth. So, yes, but you gotta make sure you put that little asterisk beside it because it's not truly in a very pure sense that way. But I see where you're coming from with that, Hector. All right, next up. Robert Beveridge writes, hey, John, what do you think will happen if Snyder Cut is a massive success for HBO Max? Do you think WB will try and keep a split universe going, specifically between Batfleck and Battinson? Well, I mean, this is a question that's been asked a million times. Like, what if? It's kind of like asking, hey, John, what if Artemis Fowl next week? What if Disney decides to re-release Artemis Fowl in theaters in January? And what if it makes $3 billion? Well, okay, I guess we can talk about that. But I'm just going to say the same thing as I said before. It depends on what is Warner Brothers' criteria for calling it a big hit, right? Because there's no box office dollars involved, right? So what is going to be Warner Brothers' criteria for a big hit? I don't know. It's a good question. What I do caution people, though, when I think about it, is that while there are people like me who like what Zack Snyder has done in the DCU already, in the case of Man of Steel, you know me, I think Man of Steel is the most underrated comic book film of all time. Nobody on this planet is a bigger champion of Man of Steel that doesn't have the last name Snyder. All right. Nobody on this planet is a bigger champion than me of Man of Steel, whose last name doesn't happen to be Snyder. But the reality is that even though I love it, and even though I liked Batman versus Superman, and I like the theatrical version of Justice League, despite all that, the reality is a lot of people hated them. I can't explain why. Like, why people dislike Man of Steel, I don't know. But I don't have to understand it. I just have to accept it. A hell of a lot of people hate Man of Steel. Every time I talk about Man of Steel, my inbox and everything fills up with, you're crazy, John, Man of Steel sucks, all the time. The fact of the matter is, half the critics and half the audience hated Man of Steel. Half the critics and half the audience hated Batman versus Superman. Which leads me to go, there's no real, right now, while I expect that I'm going to like the Justice League miniseries that comes out on HBO Max, because I love Man of Steel and I like Batman versus Superman, while I expect that I'm going to like it, the reality is there's no rational basis to assume that all these people who have seen Zack Snyder's, what's the best word for it, flavor of DCU material and hated it, there's no rational reason to believe that they're suddenly going to magically start liking Zack Snyder's tastes when it comes to making DCEU films, right? They've seen his DCEU films and they hated it. There's no reason to believe they're suddenly magically going to love it now. I expect those of us like myself who have already liked his stuff, we will like it, and that's all I care about. I mean, I know that's pretty selfish, but all I care about is, am I going to like it? That's all I really care about. But I don't know. It's just this whole thing about, what if everybody loves this? Well, okay. I mean, anything's possible. I mean, I hated Rush Hour 1, but then I loved Rush Hour 2. So, right? So maybe there will be people who hated Man of Steel, and I still can't understand why those people exist, but it's all subjective, who hated Man of Steel, who hated Batman versus Superman, and maybe they'll just there will be some people that maybe will magically like this new thing, but I don't know. It's hard to kind of pin down. We'll have to wait and see. All right, next up. Cam on Camera writes, for the first trailer for the musical movie, The Prom. Oh yeah, that's right. I saw this came out with Meryl Streep and a bunch of people. The first trailer for the musical movie, The Prom, based on the hit Broadway musical, dropped today. Have you watched the trailer? I did. I watched the trailer for The Prom, and I gotta say, I didn't like it. That's not to say I won't like the movie, but if we're just talking about the trailer, I did watch the trailer, and I just got to be honest with you. I honestly, personally didn't feel like the trailer was very good. And I like musicals, right? Don't get me wrong, I'm not like all musical all the time. I'm not one of those guys. Like Robert Meyer Burnett keeps saying I'm a song and dance man. That's not really true. I am not really a song and dance man. It's not like I am like totally into musical stuff at all. It's not like that at all. But I do appreciate a good musical. Like I love Greatest Showman, and one of my top 20 favorite movies of all time is Moulin Rouge. So I watched this trailer yesterday and I didn't feel any of it. I didn't feel any of it. Again, maybe it's just a bad trailer. We've seen lots of bad trailers to great movies, and I'm hoping that'll be the case here. But yeah, right now it didn't work for me, unfortunately. But thanks for asking, man. Let's see how the movie turns out. All right, Bismo Funyuns writes, I think Spider-Man's alibi in Far From Home can be set up by having a Skrull transform into him, or if it's true, maybe Andrew or Toby's version of Spidey provide an alibi. It's a rumor, but that'd be fun if it happened that way. Maybe. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion and talk about the ending of Spider-Man Far From Home, right? With it being that Spider-Man gets set up for murder. My problem with that is, it is so easily disproved in that world. I mean, all you have to do is have, Agent Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. say, that's a fabricated thing. Spider-Man was working with us. That's all he's got to say. Just have the government say that. I mean, it's so it's a problem at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home that is actually so easy to fix. So easy to fix. Or just have a government rep say, yeah, so Mysterio, he was using the whole thing about him, he was using Tony Stark technology. Here's his actual history, and they can show his dossier. This is his history. He was a villain. He was a bad guy. This is how he did this. So he clearly fabricated that last little ending. Whatever. You don't even need to have a Skrull pop in. But yes, a Skrull coming in to fix the problem, also totally doable. Again, it's just a problem at the end of the movie that has so many easy solutions that I honestly haven't given a lot of thought to, but those ones you're pointing out, Bismo, definitely fall into that category. All right, Mark writes, John, as a huge Steven Seagal fan, I would love to see him return to the big screen. What would need to happen to see Nico return for Under Siege 3? And Aaron looks gorgeous this evening. Although, of course, Aaron was on the show yesterday. No chance in hell. Don't get me wrong. When I was a kid in that era of action films, like when Steven Seagal was doing his thing, I loved a good Steven Seagal movie. Steven Seagal is never making a comeback. I mean, let's just call it what it is. And I say that as somebody who deeply appreciated all of his films back in the day. But he's not making a comeback. Steven Seagal is not making a comeback. First of all, today, like it used to be back in the day, that you could be an action star and not be able to act worth crap. Today, you got to have some acting chops. Even to be an action star, you've got to have some acting chops. You don't have to be an Academy Award winner, but like, look at Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Like, he is actually a legitimately serviceable actor. He really is. Steven Seagal never was. Again, I just don't think, I mean, you never say never, but I'll pull out the never word here. You're never going to see Steven Seagal make any kind of a legitimate comeback. So let's just appreciate the work he did before and just understand that, yeah, there's not going to be a Under Siege 3 starring Steven Seagal. That's not going to happen. All right. Let's see here. Man of Steel Rules writes, I've never been a big fan of the Fast and Furious franchise. However, I would buy a ticket to see the new one if during the Tarzan swing, Han appears and cuts the cable, sending the group pummeling to their demise. That would be an interesting plot twist. That would definitely be an interesting plot twist. There's no getting around that. That would totally be a plot twist. And by the way, that's been something that we've talked about a lot, about will Han end up actually being the villain of the film? It's a possibility. I mean, I think it's a legitimate possibility. Would I put money on it? No. No, it is not likely. I just think it's a good possibility. There's a difference between being likely to happen and there being a possibility of it happening. I wouldn't put money on it personally, but well, you will have to wait and see. I know Rob's very excited to find that out. Okay. Next up here, what do we got next? We got Willow writes. In the past, you've expressed reservations when a viewer suggested actor X for a role like Batman because they are too short. Aren't there camera tricks and techniques to make someone look larger on screen, though, so that height isn't that big of an issue? Well, listen, height isn't that big of an issue anyway. Like, yeah, sometimes there have been some people who bring up castings for Batman or whatever, and I'd say, well, that particular actor is 5'5". I'd personally like to see an actor who is at least as tall as me, if not taller than me, playing the role. Because Batman's supposed to be this really big dude, right? But it's not the most important thing in the world. Hell, look at Michael Keaton. I don't know how tall Michael Keaton is, but he's no giant, right? It's not the biggest thing in the world. It's just, all other things being equal, I would prefer if they cast somebody who physically, at least came a little bit closer to resembling what Batman is supposed to be. But it's not a deal breaker. It's not a deal breaker. As far as are there camera tricks? Yes, there are. But do you really, why put your filmmakers in a position where where every scene you do, you have to worry about your camera tricks to make sure Tom Cruise doesn't look as short as he actually is, Unless it's a Tom Cruise movie, why put your filmmakers through that? Why not just get somebody who's a bit taller? But again, if they announced next week that they were doing another Batman movie and it was going to be Tom Cruise, for example. Again, all other things being equal, I'd rather it's somebody taller, but all other things are not equal. Tom Cruise is a terrific actor. He's a fantastic actor. And so I'd be okay with it, But yeah, all other things being equal, I would prefer my guys to be a little bit taller. All right, Han Talks First podcast. You mention all the time your distaste for Dave Filoni's character Ahsoka Tano, but I would like to know who your favorite Star Wars character is and why. Personally, Mace Windu is my GOAT. Love your show. May the Force be with you. Well, thank you so much for that. And yeah, listen, Ahsoka Tano has, especially in Rebels, Ahsoka Tano actually had her moments for me, but overall I find her to be a very annoying, useless character. That's just me, but I know there's a lot of Ahsoka Tano fans out there, and that's awesome. That's just me. But I can't really tell if you're asking me who is my favorite Star Wars character overall, or who's my favorite Dave Filoni Star Wars character. I'd have to say if my favorite Dave Filoni created Star Wars character is probably Hera. I just, Hera is like the steadfast rock. You know what I mean? Of Rebels, and I adore that character. Overall, I'm going to give you the most boring vanilla answer there is, but it's the truth. My favorite Star Wars character is Luke Skywalker. I mean, I know that's so stereotypical. Everybody says Luke Skywalker. I know, but it is the truth. I'm not going to make up a lie just so I sound original. Luke is my favorite character. Following him as the Ark, as the kid on the moisture farm, to becoming this legendary figure. Luke Skywalker has always been my favorite Star Wars character. All right, next up, Shadow Jester writes, "Hey John, 2 things about Spidey and mentors. 1, part of me wonders if it has to do with Sokovia Accords and his age, not so much a commentary on his abilities. 2, I don't think Strange will fill a Tony/Fury role in holding his hand now. 2 superhero. Sorry, I should bring these up on screen. But instead will be his mentor on guiding him how to deal with magic and multiverse madness, if you will. Because I think Spidey now has come into his own as a hero, but still has very little experience with magic or alternate realities." Well, okay, I'll tell you why I disagree with you, Shadow Jester. And you're thinking outside the box, and that's a good way to think. But I'll tell you why I disagree. Number 1, I don't think it has anything to do with the Sokovia Accords, because honestly, I don't think the Sokovia Accords are in play anymore. At least I don't think they are. I think the snap changed everything, especially considering that there was probably a lot of debate that the reason the snap happened was because of the Sokovia Accords. Maybe if half the Avengers weren't on the run or in jail or in hiding, that maybe the Avengers could have stopped Thanos. I guarantee you, in that world, after the snap happened, there was a lot of finger pointing and a lot of debate about whether the Sokovia Accords were responsible for the events of Infinity War, the ending of Infinity War. I don't know that's the case, but I don't even know, are the Sokovia Accords even really in play? Are they enforced like they were? I simply don't know. So there's that. The other thing, though, is about he needs a mentor for magic. Well, but wouldn't every single character in the MCU, other than Doctor Strange and Wong, wouldn't every other character need a mentor for magic? Like, wouldn't they all do that? Why does Spider-Man need to get to? I don't know. You might be right, and I hope you are. I hope you're right about that, because I'm over this whole thing that Spidey needs to be somebody junior. You know, they made him Iron Man Jr. for a while now, and so I hope so. I hope you're right about that. Let's keep our eyes open for that. All right, next up, we got Jesse, who writes, I wonder if they'll include any supernatural elements in the Uncharted movie. That's a good question. The first few games had a lot of supernatural things, but Naughty Dog decided to move away from that recently, where in Uncharted 4, Thief's End, there were no supernatural things at all. So it'll be interesting if they're pulling from the newer, more grounded era of games like Uncharted 4 and The Lost Legacy, or if they'll pull from the older movie fantastical ones. Personally, I prefer my Uncharted with no supernatural elements. I'll tell you what, as somebody who doesn't have a real dog in this fight, no pun intended on the Naughty Dog name, as somebody without a dog in this fight, I'm not saying that if they go supernatural in it, that means the movie can't be good. Not at all. They could put supernatural elements in this upcoming movie with Mark Wahlberg and Tom Holland, and it could be fantastic. Absolutely. But I will tell you, I'm actually on your side of this, Jesse. All other things being equal, that's the magic phrase of the day. All other things being equal, I would like to see a bit more of a grounded adventure, treasure hunter kind of movie. At least to start. If you want to introduce a supernatural element into the franchise later, and obviously they want to make a franchise out of this isn't going to be a one-shot movie unless it flops. But I'm with you. I mean, I want to see Uncharted with like just more grounded, straight up adventure, treasure hunting, whatever it is they're going to make the basis of the story. I'm with you. Again, if they pull out the first trailer and we see there's magical elements, supernatural elements, I'm not going to write the movie off. I'll still be excited, but I'm with you. All things being equal, I'd like to see them keep it a little bit more grounded. So yeah, I agree, Jesse. All right, Jay Bling writes, I want to ask, because I don't think you addressed this talking about the Fast 10 and 11 announcement, and your response to my Justice for Han comment left me flabbergasted. Do you want Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham to return for the supposed finale? Yeah. I mean, again, all other things being equal, if they get to 11, you want it, if that's the end of the franchise, theoretically speaking, you want it to go out with a bang. You want to have everybody there. You want that to be the Avengers Infinity War and Endgame of the Fast and Furious franchise. You want to have everybody there. I mean, you go back to movies 1, 2, and 3, and you pull out every minor character you can and you cram them in there. And that would include Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel. Now, obviously, we all know that Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson, two guys that I'm a big fan of. I'm a fan of both of these guys. But it's very obvious Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel had a very public falling out, and they didn't want to work together. However, you may have missed this. A couple of months ago, it looked like Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson kind of extended olive branches to each other over social media. And it looks like they started the process of making up. Like, I think it was when Dwayne got married, and like Vin Diesel actually put out a very classy social media message congratulating Dwayne Johnson on the marriage, blah, blah, blah. And then Dwayne Johnson wrote something in response, and it sounded like the makings of maybe them professionally patching things up. I don't know. I don't like to get into the TMZ garbage. But yeah, again, all other things being equal, I would like to see him come back. But again, so for those of you who know what Jay Blink's talking about, seeing flabbergasted by, Jay was asking, you know, Han coming back is not justice for Han. That's just him coming back. My argument is this. Let's say you're on trial for murder. Let's say you murdered Eddie. I don't know, I'm just making up a name. Let's say you're accused of murdering Eddie and people want justice for Eddie. But then halfway through the trial, dramatic music plays and the audience gasps as the court doors open up and in walks Eddie. Eddie's not dead. Well, that's the end of it. There's no justice for Eddie needed. Eddie's not dead. He's fine. If Han ain't dead, you don't need justice for Han. If he ain't dead, you don't need justice for him. So that's kind of my take on that. All right, next up, we've got Certified Lover Boy writes. I know slim pickings, but top 5 worst films of 2020 so far. 5, Scoob. 4, Lovebirds. Can I just say that Lovebirds is my most disappointing movie of the year. I'm not saying it's the worst, but it's my biggest disappointment this year. Because Kumail Nanjiani, after The Big Sick, I've become a lifelong Kumail Nanjiani fan. After The Big Sick, I'm going to be in his corner forever. And I thought the trailers for Lovebirds looked really good. Then it got dumped onto Netflix, and I was like, or was it Amazon? I can't remember, one of the two. But anyway, I still sat down and watched it. I'm like, well, this is kind of boring. The movie's not terrible. I didn't think Lovebirds was terrible, but my expectations for Lovebirds was so high that I think it is my number 1 most disappointing movie of the year. Anyway, 3, Bloodshot. That was bad. Again, I'm a big Vin Diesel fan. I am, but I'm still a big Vin Diesel fan. But yeah, Bloodshot didn't work for me, unfortunately. Number 2, Artemis Fowl. Number 1, Doolittle. Yeah, Doolittle. Listen, I got to say, it's not just because Doolittle was Robert Downey Jr. and all these superstar names and all these visual effects. It's not like Lovebirds that it's because my expectations were so high. Doolittle was garbage. It was awful. And it's the first time I can ever remember saying in a Robert Downey Jr. movie that not only was the movie bad, Robert Downey Jr. was bad in it. And listen, everybody has a bad day at the office. This was Robert Downey Jr.'s bad day at the office. I still think Robert Downey Jr. is fantastic, but that was his bad day at the office. It was just an awful. So I might right now, I have to sit down and think about it more, but right now, I think maybe Doolittle may still take the top prize as the worst movie of the year so far. We'll see. All right, Preston the Kryptonian writes, I was bred to be a warrior, Cal. Trained my entire life to master my senses. Where did you train? A farm? One of the great lines from Man of Steel. Michael Shannon, I should say. Michael Sheen's a very different guy. Michael Shannon as Zod. Fabulous line, fabulous moment. Everything about that movie so fantastic. Anyway, Musical Day writes, the first thing I ever saw Christian Bale in was the musical Newsies. I've got some friends I know that Newsies is life. Like Newsies, I think it's like, oh gosh, that movie's got to be getting close to 30 years old now. But Newsies was life. Anyway, the musical Newsies. Did you or Rob ever see that? I did. Little did I know he would go on to play Batman. Also starred Bill Pullman, Robert Duvall. They were in the film. They appeared. And Anne Margaret. I saw it on Disney Plus last night. 1992 movie. Yeah, it's 2 years. It's going to celebrate its 30th anniversary. 30th. Okay, so I just said that a number of my friends I know are like all Newsies. I mean, Newsies is everything. Particularly like this one film journalist friend of mine, Jen Yamato, who I think she's still at the LA Times. I think she was at Rotten Tomatoes for a while. Then she was at a couple of, she's always been this big senior journalist. Anyway, I think she's at the LA Times right now. Anyway, loves Newsies. Loves Newsies. I always thought Newsies was fine. I liked Newsies. I've never understood why it's like this huge icon to some people. I liked it. But yeah, I know some people that absolutely adore that film. I'm glad you had a chance to check it out, Musical Day. Okay, next up, we've got Senpaigar writes, I've decided to do a series of videos about parks, restaurants, etc. in my hometown. That's an awesome idea. West Kelowna, British Columbia. That is, listen, Canada is the most beautiful country in the world. Probably the most beautiful place in the world is, I mean, it would go back and forth, but like everything around I want to be careful because no matter what I say, I'm going to piss some people in Canada off. But you know what? I'll keep it to myself. But anyway, let's just say some of the areas around British Columbia, or British Columbia and Alberta, just like some of the most gorgeous on God's green earth that you could ever visit and see. West Kelowna, British Columbia. I've lived here all 30 years of my life. I thought it would be fun to do and maybe get some people who want to visit one day, get people to want to visit one day. Who knows? I think it's a great idea, Senpaigar. Listen, I'm always saying, I think everybody, even if it's just as a tiny little personal hobby thing, everybody should have some kind of creative endeavor that they do. Something they do just to be creative and to flex the creative muscles in their brain a bit. I just think that's a healthy thing for everybody to do. If you can do something like that, I think that sounds like a fabulous idea. And what I would do is this, and this is just off the top of my head. Here's what I would do, Senpaigar. I would get one or two places to agree to do that with you, right? A local corner store, a local restaurant. Take a camera in, interview them, do some video of it, put like a 5-minute little sizzle together. Then what I would do is go to either a chamber of commerce or go to City Hall and find out who you need to talk to and just say to them, hey, look, I'm endeavoring into this project. Here's a little sample of what it is I'm doing. And don't ask them for money. Just say, can I get you on board as far as maybe help me with contacts about who to reach out to at local businesses and things like that. And I bet you, if you do a good little job shooting, like I said, one or two places first, package a little sizzle, take it to City Hall or the local Chamber of Commerce or whatever, I'll bet you they'll get on board with you and help you do it. They probably won't give you money and you shouldn't ask them for money, but ask them for contacts, recommendations, and get them to help you coordinate doing that. I think your project sounds great. I'm getting excited about it. I want to do it now. I want to do your project. But in all seriousness, I think that sounds like a great idea, Senpaigar. Go do it. All right. Russell Amador writes, hey, John, after a few months, it looks like Unhinged is now available for rent for $19.99. I totally missed out on seeing it in the theaters and had this on my radar, but must ask, is this a movie you've seen yet? If not, would you shell out $20 to watch? So here's the thing. It pains me to say that I have not seen Unhinged because Russell Crowe is my favorite actor. Like right now, well, understanding that Daniel Day-Lewis is retired, Russell Crowe is my favorite actor. But you got to remember, for a long time, the only way I could see a movie in a theater is if I drove 3.5 hours to Vegas. And I was only going to do that for an X-Men movie or maybe for Tenet. So I didn't get a chance. No, I did not watch Unhinged yet. I do plan on watching it. Is it worth it to me to shell out $20? Hell no. No, I'm not going to shell out $20 to watch a movie at frickin' home. No. But John, some people may say, depending on the theater and what city you live in, you'd be paying $20 for a movie ticket. Yes, but what am I getting for that $20? I'm getting a night out. I'm getting the theatrical experience for that $20. I'm getting to go out with my friends and have an evening out of the house. Not say, well, I'm going to sit on my couch tonight. What, the same fucking thing you've done for the last 13 nights in a row? Yeah, I'm just going to sit here on my couch. Yeah. I just... Get out of the house. Don't you ever want a girl to touch you? Anyway, sorry. That's a little William Shatner there from Saturday Night Live. Anyway, but yeah, like I'm not going to pay $20 just to do what I do all the time anyway, especially during the pandemic, just sit at home on my couch. No, if I'm going to pay $20, I want my $20 worth. I want my evening out. I want my theatrical experience. I want to be able to make it a social event. I'm able to do all of that with the $17 that I need to pay for a ticket for like an AMC Prime seat. You know, I could pay $12 for a regular theater, sure. But if I want that AMC Prime experience, I'll pay my $17, $18, $19, $20, depending on the night in the movie. I'll pay that because of what I'm getting my money's worth out of it. I'm not going to pay $20. No, don't get me wrong. If it's Man of Steel 2, let's be honest, I'd probably pay $100. If it's a new Avengers movie, yeah. If it's a new Star Wars movie, perhaps. But generally speaking, for the most part, no, I'm not going to drop $20 for a movie. particularly a rental. I'm not going to rent a movie for $20. So I can what? Do what I was going to do anyway and just sit at home on my couch? Really? I'm going to pay $20 for what I was going to do anyway? Nah. So no, I love Russell Crowe. Very excited about this movie. I do want to see it, but I'm not paying $20 for a rental to do something I did at home. Now, some of you might remember I did drop down the $30 to watch Mulan, but I'm telling you, if I didn't do a movie show, and that was obviously a big tentpole, big studio movie, if I didn't do a movie show and I felt like I needed to talk about it on my thing, I wouldn't have done it. I would have waited. And for Unhinged, a movie that's already done its theatrical run, there's no immediate need for me to do that. But nah, I'm not going to pay $20 to do something that I do every single freaking night. Anyway, let's see here. Ryan writes, "Hey, John, in light of Apple acquiring Charlie Brown, it got me thinking that Rob's beloved physical media might or die. Let's see. Beloved physical media might or die just yet at the hands of streaming services, but rather survive because of streaming services for two reasons. One, if the streaming service wars do in fact mean everything streaming fights for IP, then at some point it will actually be cheaper to simply own the media rather than pay dozens of subscriptions to watch one or two IPs service. I disagree, but let's go on to part 3 of your thing. Until ultra high speed internet services and 4K TVs are available in all parts of the globe at cheap prices, then the quality and consistency of streaming still can't compare to watching Blu-rays or 4K discs. Anyway, thanks and your thoughts." Well, here's the thing. Cinephiles don't like to admit this, but Rob and I had a good conversation about this the other day, and ironically enough, Rob agrees with me. People don't care about 4K. Some people care about 4K. For the most part, a lot of people don't care about 4K at all. As a matter of fact, tons of people still buy DVDs. That's not even HD. There's a lot of people that still just buy the DVD. And that's not even HD. That's not even HD quality, let alone 4K. Most people don't care. Most of the average consumers don't care about 4K. And I'll go further. I'll say 95% of people can't tell the difference, if they're sitting in the right environment, can't tell the difference between a good HD print and a 4K print. Most people can't tell the difference. I was watching one of my favorite tech bloggers, one of my favorite tech YouTubers the other day. I think it was Peter McKinnon. Anyway, he does a lot of stuff on cameras, right? And he did a video. It might have been one of the other guys. I can't remember, but they did this thing about, can you tell the difference between something shot at 1080, that's regular HD, 4K, and 8K, because there's actually 8K out there now. Hell, there's a Blackmagic camera out there now that's 12K. There is a 12K Blackmagic camera out there right now that you can go and buy. I think it's like $18,000, but there is a 12K camera you can go buy. Anyway, so they did this video about, can you tell the difference between something shot in HD, something shot at 4K, something shot at 8K? And even this professional experts going like, yeah, I can see a difference, but hardly. The untrained eye really wouldn't be able to tell. You know, somebody wrote in the other day, and I think somebody just mentioned it in here. I think it might have been Movie Master saying it on there, that actually HDR is actually the far more important technology than 4K. High dynamic range is actually more important, but whatever. Anyway, Ryan, here's the problem. A lot of people in this debate about physical media, they go about why maybe physical media should stay around. But the problem is, as Rob has pointed out, we're beyond the argument of should physical media stick around. We're beyond that argument now. It's not about shoulds and shouldn'ts. It's about what is happening. Physical media is at an incredibly fast pace disappearing. You know, the biggest manufacturers of Blu-ray discs and things like that, and Blu-ray players, they've gotten out of the business. The two largest manufacturers of physical media players have gotten out of the business. Sales are dropping at an exponential rate. We're beyond the debate about should physical media should be here. That's no longer a question. And it's an irrelevant question about whether it should stick around. It's about will it stick around? And no, the answer is no. There's always going to be remnants of it, just like you can still find an 8-track player out there. You can still find a boombox out there somewhere with a cassette deck in it, like Soundwave. You'll still find them, sure, but for the most part, it's going away. It's not about whether it should, it's about it won't. And here's the thing. Like more and more, there's still some remnants of it right now, but ultimately, streaming services are not going to, ultimately at the end of the day, streaming services are not going to provide their material in physical media form. There's still remnants of that right now. You will still find some of the streaming will still put out a physical thing, but long-term they're not. Why? Because that's counterproductive. The whole point about streaming is that we have exclusive content. If you want The Mandalorian, you got to be a member of Disney Plus. If you want Stranger Things, you got to be a subscriber to Netflix. If you want the new Lord of the Rings show, you got to be an Amazon Prime member. Like, that's the whole thing. The whole reason they make this content is to get you to become a subscriber, to make alternatives where you don't need to be a subscriber of ours in order to get this content. That's counterintuitive. By the way, it's also cost prohibitive. It's not cheaper. Like, for example, let's say Mandalorian. It is not cheap, maybe after a term of years, but we're not thinking in terms of years. For me to buy season 1 of The Mandalorian on Blu-ray for, I don't know, $45 for a season of Mandalorian, $45. Okay. That $45 only gets me the first season of Mandalorian. $45 right now for Disney Plus, that would get me 6 or 7 months of Disney Plus, and it wouldn't just get me Mandalorian, it would get me hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of movies and catalog material, the MCU and Star Wars and Pixar and Disney and all their originals and blah, blah, blah. That same price that I would have spent to get 1 season of Mandalorian on physical media would have got me 7 months worth of hundreds of titles. Hundreds of titles. So ultimately, it's not cost attractive. It really doesn't come down to being cost attractive. And I still have some physical discs, but ask me the last time I really cracked them open and put them in. I mean, Rob talks about this all the time, right? Like, he's got discs that he's had for 10 years, but they have literally just sat on his shelf collecting dust. Anyway, so that's why I don't personally know if that works. But again, we've moved beyond the question about should there be physical media. Now it's just a question about, is it disappearing? And it is. And I don't think there's anything that's really going to save it at this point. All right, Preston the Kryptonian writes, Sean Aston, I think you probably meant Aston, has some pretty cool solo moments in cinema, namely in Lord of the Rings and the Goonies. He absolutely does. Can you recite any of them? Well, I mean, when you're talking about Lord of the Rings, I mean, there's good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. Yeah, everybody talks about that one. Also, everybody talks about, I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you. I mean, I got chills thinking about it. That's a great line. But honestly, my favorite Samwise quote in Lord of the Rings is actually one people don't normally talk about. But he's talking about what Gandalf instructed him to do. Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee, and I don't mean to. Oh, I love that line. Again, look at hair on my arm standing up. Chills. Goosebumps on my arm. Just thinking about that. I love that line. When it comes to Goonies, yeah, Mickey's the one who said Goonies never die. Okay, yes, he is. But I think the best line from Sean Astin in that is, and I'm trying to remember the exact wording, but Chester Copperpot. Chester Copperpot. What? Chester Copperpot. Don't you guys see? Don't you guys realize? He was a pro and he didn't get this far. Look how far we've come. You know, that line? That's my favorite line of his in the Goonies. That's my personal favorite line of his in the Goonies. Anyway, let's see here. Caleb writes, If you could live in a world where people acted and spoke like characters in the movies of any director, who would it be? I've got to go Guy Ritchie. The nicknames are, oh yeah, Guy Ritchie's movie. When you're looking at Lock, Stock, and you're looking at, my favorite film of Guy Ritchie, which is Snatch, or you're looking at, some of his other stuff. There's a uniqueness to his dialogue that I just absolutely love. I absolutely love. I would actually go with Aaron Sorkin's, even though it's not a movie, it's a television series. I would go with West Wing. And here's why. When you watch West Wing, these are clearly highly intelligent people speaking incredibly eloquently and speaking with great, I'll just use the word again, speaking with great intelligence, right? It's not just that I wish I could live in a world where more people talked like that, but more people acted like that. Especially in today's world with the political things we have going on today. One of the reasons I love West Wing so much is that it just kind of reflects a world the way I wish the world was. Like the highest, most intelligent people who speak incredibly intelligently and eloquently. And, So yeah, Guy Ritchie, I'm on board for that one, which is kind of funny because the West Wing, the West Wing way of talking and the Guy Ritchie way of talking are like totally opposites, but those are my two favorites at the same time. Go figure that. All right, next up, Caleb also writes, get one tomorrow, get one in a year, get one never. Man of Steel 2 with Snyder and Cavill. Batfleck solo movie based on his story, but Reeves directing, or George Miller's Justice League in an Elseworld multiverse scenario. Ooh, well, okay. I would take Man of Steel tomorrow, because waiting the longest for that. I would take the Batfleck movie. The only reason I'm not saying the Batfleck movie first, like tomorrow, is because Matt Reeves directing. Don't get me wrong, I love Matt Reeves as a director. He's a great director. But Ben Affleck is the guy I want to see directing Batman. So if it was that, maybe I'd swap it around. And then the one to see never is George Miller's Justice League. That's not to say I'd never want to see it, but if you're only giving me a choice and one of them's got to go, then I'll do that one. But that's how I would do it. Interesting question, Caleb. All right, Jared W. writes, hey, John, first-time questioner from New Zealand. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Love the show. Wonder if you had seen the new trailers for the anime. Oh, I have. The new trailers for the Animaniacs reboot coming to Hulu. And what do you think? Fingers crossed we'll be able to watch it in New Zealand as Hulu isn't available yet. Well, listen, a lot of that material that goes to Hulu, they'll put it out on other services in different parts of the world quite often. So you should be fine, I hope. Anyway. They put out like a little teaser a while ago, but yeah, now they put in this new one. It's actually Pinky and the Brain in it. Oh my gosh. I ate it. You got to understand, I loved Animaniacs. I can still sing a good chunk of Songs of the World. I can still sing a good chunk of that, Countries of the World. I can still sing a good chunk of that song. And of course, who can forget Lake Titicaca, Lake Titicaca. I love that. Anyway, Pinky and the Brain, greatest thing ever. And to actually hear the original voice people doing it, it was a nostalgia rush, man. I cannot, I just ate it up. Now, I don't know if it's going to be any good. Hopefully it will be, but I got to tell you, the trailers nailed it and it brought me back, man. It brought me back. The nostalgia factor is real. All right. The Image, was that Jared, by the way? Yes. And thank you for writing it from New Zealand, Jared. All right. The Image Wizard writes, hey, John and Rob. Rob's not here today. I've heard that the Zack Snyder Justice League is now based in the idea that it was originally going to be 2 films and that he is now trying to get both done as one film. What do you think about this? No, from everything that I've heard and from everything everybody is everybody in legitimate places, including very, very pro Zack Snyder Cut people and whatever, that's not the case. That's not the case. They're not filming another entire movie. You know, Zack Snyder's original cut his original edit of the film that he sat down many years ago with the Warner Brothers executives to show him the string out of his movie. That was close to 4 hours. That was close to 4 hours already. So they're not going in and filming another entire movie to add on top of that. So no, I unless we hear something else coming from somebody authoritative, I'd say right now that's probably not anywhere near true. That's my guess at this point at any rate. All right, next up. The Wakandan Forever writes, I can fix it. Number 1, time travel. Number 2, the Force. Number 3, genie wishes. Number 4, true love's kiss. That's one. Number 5, cut red wire. Number 6, given replacement superhero suit. Number 7, parent flashback. I'm not sure what you mean by that one. Number 8, friends arrive. Number 9, car starts last second. Number 10, answer in the dream. Oh yeah, that bothers me. P.S. Sorry, Lex Luger. There's only one. The total package. The one you pointed out there is one that's always bothered me, right? Time travel bothered me because any problem in any movie in history can be solved with time travel. You pick any story in any movie ever, the problem of that movie could be solved with time travel. Time travel is a lazy man's tool, in my opinion, whatever. Then, of course, the Force, genie wishes, yeah. But the one that's always bothered me, that I've seen happen before, we've all seen happen a lot, is in a TV show or movie that has no supernatural elements to it, magically an answer gets revealed to a character in a dream. Now, that can work fine when you're talking about like something like a movie or a TV show or something that does have a supernatural slant to it. That's fine. You can do that because you're accepting that in the world of this story, that sort of thing can happen. But how many times have we seen a TV show or a movie that has no supernatural element to it, and yet somehow an answer is revealed in a dream to a character that there's no way the character would have known otherwise? Whether it's one of their long lost dead father coming to them in a dream or something along those lines, right? We've seen this happen before. And I got to say, out of all the ones in your list, that's the one that bothers me. That's the one that bothers me. But at any rate. Okay, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Monkey of all DJs writes, hello from Winnipeg. I miss the Forks. I used to like stopping by in the Forks there in Winnipeg. Been a fan since the AMC days. Thank you so much. After a bunch of technical difficulties, just watched your documentary. Well worth the trouble. Awesome doc. Made me laugh. Those blurbs made me cry. History. Just a great documentary overall. Thank you and keep bringing the filthy. Thank you so much, man. I'm assuming you were there. You were part of the Portland Film Festival. Thank you so much for that. For those of you who don't know, you give me an opportunity to do a little plug of my movie, obviously, that will be made available by the end of the year. We're going to have this available for everybody. My little documentary, Movie Trailers, A Love Story. I'm so proud of this little thing. And particularly as something that, we just did. I just decided I want to do this and we just did it. We didn't wait for other people to make it happen for us. I just looked around my room, said, what do I got to make a movie? I got this. What do I need to do it? Oh, well, I'll need to still get this, this, and this. Okay, went out and got it. Now, what do we need to do next? Well, you need to call these people. So I called them. What do we need to do next? Well, you need to get this lawyer to do whatever. So I did it. And then about a year later, we had a finished movie. And I'm very, very proud of it. And thank you so much for going to see it, Monkey. I really appreciate that. And everybody else, keep your eyes open. Within the next few months, we should have it available to everybody to see. Where and how, I'm not sure yet. We're working all that stuff out. But my goal is to have it wherever avenue we go. My goal is to have it available by the end of the year. Oh, by the way, one other thing I should throw in here. This Sunday, if any of you are planning to be a part and participate in the Baltimore Comic-Con, this Sunday, they're interviewing me. They're doing a panel with me and for my movie Trailers, A Love Story at the Baltimore Comic-Con. It's going to be this Sunday. If you are participating in the Baltimore Comic-Con online, just check the schedule. It is this Sunday that I'll be doing my panel. I'm not quite sure who it is that's interviewing me, but we'll find out. So yeah, you guys might want to look into that. Anyway, okay, let's keep on going here with the questions. Next one up. That was Monkey of All DJs. So next one up is The Other Black Guy writes, I like many documentaries, but I seem to avoid some because I don't want them to change my attitude towards some things that I enjoy, subjects like GMO, social media, SeaWorld, etc. I don't want to give up certain things or feel guilty. Do you think that's wrong? Hey, listen, you're not alone. You're not alone. That is a natural human thing. Like, I love the fact you mentioned social media. It's like there's a documentary right now on Netflix that's about social media, and everybody, like, I've heard from a lot of people saying, yep, I'm done on social media. I'm getting off social media after watching this movie. But it's not just limited to that. It's not just limited to that, right? One of the big flaws of us as a species, and let's be honest, we're all guilty of this, all of us, is we generally like to hear things that we already believe. That's true of all of us. We generally like to hear what we already believe. We only want to hear things that are being said that are things we already think, already believe. Right? We get attracted to things naturally, not to be challenged. We get attracted to things that say things we already think, right? There's a reason why, if you look at something like MSNBC, which is an extremely left-leaning news outlet, there's a reason why it's only people who already believed really left, politically really extreme left people watch it, because they're going to say on MSNBC the things they want to hear. They're going to say the things they already believe. As a counterpoint to that, there's a reason why Fox News, it's basically only inhabited by extreme right-wing people or very solidly right-wing people, because they know Fox will only say the things that they want to hear. Fox is only going to say the things that back up what their preconceived notions are, that they're only going to say things that fall in line with what the viewer already believes, right? So it's a natural tendency. It's a natural tendency for all of us. So yeah, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't watched the social media one yet. And guess what? There's a part of that reason is just schedule. I haven't had time to watch it, but I'd be lying to you if I didn't say there's also a little part of me that's like, am I going to want to reject all social media if I watch this? But listen, it's also important to understand that any documentary, that it's being told through the lens of the filmmaker, right? So it's being told from a certain point of view. And just because the filmmaker sees it a certain way and observed it a certain way and talks to certain people, that doesn't necessarily mean that encapsulates all of it. And that's true of any documentary, even the greatest ones of all time. So yeah, you don't feel guilty. It is a bad habit, but it's a bad habit you share with everybody. We all have it. But yeah, I love that you're so self-aware, other black guy, that you'd even ask the question. I love that you're so self-aware that you even asked the question. I think that's really good. All right. Next up. Ever Nolasco writes, love the show, John. Thank you so much. Fun fact, The Trial of the Chicago 7, which is actually right now my favorite movie of the year, filmed in the mansion at my school. In the mansion? Mansion? Anyway, at my school, Fairleigh Dixon University in New Jersey. Some of my classmates actually met Aaron Sorkin and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Anyway, can't wait to watch your film. I get a big kick, seriously. Like when I'd be in Hamilton, my hometown is Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, the Hammer. When I'd be at home, like whenever they'd be shooting something in my hometown, I freak out about it. Like when they shot the Hulk there, I was freaking out about it. When I turned on DC's Titans, and I realized that's Hamilton. And then I looked up, I was like, yep, they shot this show in Hamilton. I always get freaked out about it. It's always cool when you get to draw those little parallels there. Thanks for sharing that, man. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, one of two. The sad thing is, Quibi actually had finally just recently added a show that specifically fits their format and could have led to more like it. It's called Wireless, and it's about a guy. I saw commercials for this, actually. It's about a guy who gets stranded on a mountain highway. He uses several phone apps in his attempt to get rescued, and tilting your phone vertically lets you see his phone, and you need bits of both parts of the story to get the full experience. Yeah, I saw trailers for that, where it's like the guy, his car stranded in the middle of a winter storm in the middle of nowhere on a highway. He's like talking about, if you don't come get me right now, I'm going to die. And it looked interesting. It did. It looked interesting. Here's the problem, though. And for those of you who missed the news, we talked about this the other day. Quibi is shutting down. And one of the main reasons for that wasn't that they didn't find content that really fit within it. It was the basic setup of it in the first place. And was anybody going to watch that show? I mean, even I thought the trailer I thought the commercials looked interesting, but I didn't go watch it because I knew, it's just like a 10-minute thing. Not interested. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's unfair of me, but it is what it is, So I don't know, it's true that is a piece of content that does very specifically fit their format, but I'm not sure that had they launched with that, it would have made any difference, right? So it's always, it would be a really sad thing if they came out with something right now as they're about to die that would have made Quibi a hit if they launched with it. That would be a really sad thing. But as intrigued as I am by this one little thing they're doing, I don't think it would have changed the narrative at all, even if they launched with it. Even if they launched with 20 things like it, I don't know that it would have changed the narrative. So that's the unfortunate thing, too. That's a lot of money they wasted on that thing, man. All right, Call Me Ishmael writes, hey, John. I found it funny that you were making fun of the Jiu Jitsu trailer while you like a movie called The Karate Kid with Jaden Smith. Is that Will Smith's kid's name? Is it Jaden Smith? With Jaden Smith. That had no karate in the movie at all. It absolutely did. Should have had a disclaimer saying no karate was used during the making of the film. No, but here's the thing, though. And I didn't dislike the Jiu Jitsu trailer. I was just making fun of, and I was just making fun of the fact that the movie is called Jiu Jitsu, but there is literally nothing in the trailer that even resembles Jiu Jitsu. Karate Kid, there's everything about Karate Kid at least resembles karate. Nothing in the Jiu Jitsu trailer remotely resembled Jiu Jitsu. That was the big difference. And by the way, I still love the trailer. I'm going to eat that movie up. It doesn't matter if it's the worst piece of garbage ever made. I'm going to eat it up because of that trailer. I did just find it kind of funny that the name of the movie is Jiu Jitsu, and there's nothing that even slightly looks like Jiu Jitsu in it. You can't say that about the Karate Kid. It all at least looks like karate in the Karate Kid. Anyway, Juiced Stacks writes, hey, John, I saw The Return of the King Extended Edition in cinemas last night. That's awesome. Super safe. Awesome to experience it on the big screen again. The sound of the elephants. Oh, the oliphants. Is that, what do they call them again? The elephants or something? They didn't quite say elephants. It's like the oliphants or something like that. Something that made it sound a little bit different. The sound of the elephants, Rides of the Rohirrim, and Men of the West, dude. You know what? I do want to go and watch Lord of the Rings. Any of the Lord of the Rings on the big screen again. It's been a long time. It has been a long time since I've seen it. On the big screen, that is. And that is absolutely one of those movies you absolutely got to see on the big screen. So I am a little bit jealous, Juiced. I am a little bit jealous. I'm glad you enjoyed your experience, and I got to get out and do it myself. All right, next up. Just in Time to Chat writes, hey, John, I 100% agree with you that Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man film. I love that entire trilogy. Sandman, Spider-Man 3 is my favorite comic book movie villain of all time. I'm a grown-ass man, and his story with his daughter makes me cry every time. Great actor as well. Yeah, Thomas Hayden Church, who played Sandman. I love Thomas Hayden Church. Everything from Wings, which was this little sitcom that was on during the era of Cheers and stuff like that. I loved Wings as well. But anyway, and then, of course, the first thing, movie-wise, I really noticed him in, he was with Paul Giamatti in Sideways. A great movie revolving around wine. But, yeah, so he was great in that. But I've always liked Thomas Hayden Church. And I did think that was one of the positive points of Spider-Man. Again, I'm not a big fan of Spider-Man 3. But Thomas Hayden Church is definitely one of the bright spots of it. I agree with you on that. And yes, Spider-Man 2, still one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. All right, Anonymous writes, "Hey, John. So this is the final episodes of Supernatural. Yep, we're in the final episodes. I have to say it is bittersweet, and I'm enjoying the last few episodes they have shown. I have been watching this show since 2005, since I was 15 years old. I will miss watching the Winchesters." Yeah, this is a show. Again, it is difficult for me. It's been 15 years. And it's so weird to think about that it's difficult for me to think of a show or to think of a time in my life where watching Supernatural was not a part of my life. It's difficult. Again, it's just difficult to think of a time when watching Supernatural was not a part of my weekly routine or is not a part of my daily life, you know? And it is weird that it is coming. And you know, what's funny? It doesn't even feel, that's the one thing about this season too. It doesn't even feel like it's the last season, which I think might actually be a good thing. It just feels like regular day with the Winchesters, you know what I mean? But it is going to be very, very bittersweet for me when it ends. It really will. But hey, it had a great run. All right, Abel Leon writes, "Hey, John, with Nolan North being on the set of Uncharted, over under 8% he will cameo in the movie." Cameo? Oh, hell, I'll do better than 8. I'd say 60 to 65, maybe even 70% chance. So over under 8, I'll take over easily. I'd put $100 on the over. Cameo. Like maybe he's just like John Williams cameoed in The Rise of Skywalker, right? He's just a quick bartender. The camera just goes to him for a second, moves off. That's a quick cameo. That Nolan North, who of course did the voice of Nathan Drake in the Uncharted games, that he'll at least cameo in it, I'd say it's a very strong chance. So strong of a chance that I'd say it's not just a chance, I believe it's likely. So I'll go 65 to 70% on that, actually. All right. Hey, John, love the show, writes, what today, in your opinion, is the percentage likelihood that movie theaters survive? That's been the $1 billion question, right? Because I believe that if movie theaters can stay alive, like Daniel Day-Lewis in Last of the Mohicans, stay alive. If the movie theaters can stay alive to when all the movies start coming out again, I believe the movie theaters will be perfectly okay. They will be perfectly fine. They will recover and they will get back on their feet and everything will be fine. But how convinced am I that they'll actually survive to that point? Honestly, I give it a coin toss. I really do. I give it a coin toss. I think it's a 50% chance. I think there is a solid 50% chance that the movie theaters do not survive as we know them, AMC theaters, Regal, whatever, that they will not survive to when the movies start coming out again. If they can, they'll be fine. Because then there's going to be a lot of big movies to come out and you're going to get a lot of people itching to go back to the movie theaters. But can they survive to that point? Right now I'm going to call it a 50-50 shot right now. So I know that sounds depressing. Anyway, Preston the Kryptonian writes, happy birthday to Ryan Reynolds. That's right. It is Ryan Reynolds' birthday today. Happy birthday to that good Canadian kid. Hold a second. How old is Ryan Reynolds? Ryan Reynolds is a young, dashing 44 years old. 44, Ryan Reynolds. Happy birthday to you, sir. Doing Canada proud. Doing the movies proud. He's just one of my favorite guys in Hollywood. He really is. Like everything from him on screen to he's my favorite guy to follow on social media. He's him and Hugh Jackman. Absolute gold. Happy birthday to Ryan Reynolds. Good Canadian kid. All right, next up. Casanova Frankenstein, greatest villain in comic book or in superhero movie history. Casanova Frankenstein. Good morning, John. I can't recommend to you enough Love and Monsters. Really surprised by this movie. It's really awesome time. It's charming, fun, has heart. And as a dog lover, you will love it. Believe me, the dog is great, worth the rent. Of course, that's the new Dylan O'Brien movie. We've talked about this movie a little bit the last couple of days. I still haven't watched it. But I think I will. The trailer, if you go and look up the trailer for Love and Monsters, clearly a Zombieland ripoff. I mean, clearly a Zombieland ripoff. But still a good trailer nonetheless. A good trailer nonetheless. And I've heard from a couple people, Casanova, that it's actually quite good. So I do plan on watching it. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I'm not going to have a chance to watch it this weekend. My wife's got photo shoots she's doing down in San Diego. So we're going to go out to, actually today, after we're done the show, we're going to get in the car and drive down to San Diego for the weekend, check into a hotel down there. I'm going to watch the UFC fights from San Diego this weekend. So maybe once I get back, I'll get a chance to watch it. But I'm hearing good things about it, Casanova. Thank you so much for adding your voice to the recommendations of it. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, John, I don't know if you talked about the new Mank trailer. We talked about it yesterday, but my God, it looks glorious. David Fincher, F me up. Would love to know your thoughts. Again, listen, I'll say what I said before. I was actually completely underwhelmed by the first Mank trailer. Like, they put out that first teaser, and I thought, you know what? If people didn't know this was David Fincher and Gary Oldman, everybody would say this is a bland, boring trailer. And it is. It is a bland, boring trailer. The second trailer, much better. Much, much, much better. Now, look, this is one of those things, because of the subject matter, I'm a sucker for this period kind of stuff. I'm a sucker for stuffing revolving around old Hollywood stories. I'm a sucker for Gary Oldman. Obviously, you got the director in there. I would be excited for this movie without trailers, personally. So there's that. I was really glad to see a much better second trailer, though, because that first one was terrible. The first one was absolutely terrible. But the second one, a significant step in the right direction, honestly. I am very excited about watching this movie. All right, next up. Casanova Frankenstein also writes, saw for the first time The Princess Bride. Oh, you've never seen The Princess Bride? The Princess Bride. I love The Princess Bride. All right, what are we saying here? Saw for the first time The Princess Bride. The thought for the name that it was some kind of romantic drama, so I never watched, but I heard you talking about it, so I gave it a try. Dude, how wrong was I? This movie is awesome. Best sword fight ever. Listen, Princess Bride, it's hard to describe. I don't know if you guys have found this before. It is difficult to describe. Princess Bride, it doesn't even fit into any real genre, right? Princess Bride is its own thing. There's fantasy, there's adventure, there's comedy, there's family, there's action. It's a lot of different things, but it is difficult to really describe Princess Bride to somebody. It is one of the most magical films ever in Hollywood history. And honestly, I kid you not, because of the uniqueness and the specialness of Princess Bride, I would include it in any list. Like, if you were to ask me, put together a list of films that any film fan needs to have in their repertoire, that any film fan needs to have in their belt, I would put Princess Bride up there with movies like The Godfather or Bridge in the River Kwai or, Lawrence of Arabia or E.T. It's just one of those films, I think, while I may not call it one of the 10 greatest films of all time, it's hard to encapsulate. You just got to see it. You got to see it. It is one of the absolute most magical movies ever made. I love that film so much, and I'm glad you had a chance. I'm a little bit jealous, Casanova, that you got to experience for the first time. Okay. Let's see. One Forest One writes, I was excited for the 355, but when you said it was Simon Kinberg directing, my excitement vanished. My question is, what's your favorite Tom Hanks movie? Cameos not included. Mine is The Burbs. It's ridiculous. Was my go-to Halloween movie. Well, look, quickly with the Simon Kinberg thing. I don't know why you're saying it. Simon Kinberg's only ever directed one movie. He's only ever directed one film. And I said from the beginning, it was a mistake for his first film directing to be a big tentpole film like an X-Men film. But now he's done it. Now he's got it under his belt. And if people like Jessica Chastain says this is the guy to direct this movie, I guarantee you the direction of the 355 will be infinitely better. Look, what were the worst episodes of the first season of Mandalorian? The ones Dave Filoni directed. Because he had never directed anything live action before. And even he said himself on the Mandalorian behind the scenes documentary series, he said, I show up, said, I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never done this. It's a totally different thing from directing animation than it is to actually being on set and doing it. But I guarantee you that when we see the Dave Filoni directed stuff in Mandalorian Season 2, the stuff that he directs, I guarantee you it's going to be exponentially better than the first ones he did, because that was the first stuff he ever did. He had never done live action directing before. He had never done it. I guarantee you that these next episodes we see him direct are going to be infinitely better. I guarantee it. Just like I guarantee you're going to see a marked exponential improvement in Simon Kinberg's directing in the 355 than you did in his first thing, because that was the first time he had ever done it. And now he's learned those lessons. Now he's made those mistakes. And I think we're going to see something better. Favorite Tom Hanks movie? Oh, it's got Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank Redemption. What am I saying? I'm thinking probably Castaway. Sorry, in my documentary, I talk. You'll see why I made that blunder once you see my documentary. Castaway. I think Castaway. But then how do you not say, like, oh God, he's just done so many great ones. I'm still going to stick with Castaway. My wife will obviously say Big, because Anne, Big is her favorite movie, not just of Tom Hanks. Big is my wife's all-time favorite movie, period. Big is Anne's all-time favorite movie. Easy, no question, no doubt. I'll go Castaway, but man, I mean, I love, there's not many Tom Hanks movies that I don't love. You know what I mean? There's not many Tom Hanks movies that I don't love. But I say off the top of my head, I'll go Castaway. All right, last couple of questions, guys. Jesse writes, I think the best thing going for Spider-Man Doctor Strange angle of Spider-Man 3 is Strange really doesn't seem to like the hand-holding kind of guy. I feel his presence will be more of a get on my level or sit down vibe, forcing Spidey to be his own man. I mean, I don't know. We have nothing to base that on. I mean, right? We have nothing to base that on. All we have to go on is that report that I think it was the Hollywood Reporter wrote, saying he's going to take over as a mentor role. I don't know. We'll see. Listen, Doctor Strange also he's gone through the snap. He's gone through the events of Endgame and the events of Infinity War, and he's gone through things that will change you, right? And I don't expect to see the exact same hard-ass Doctor Strange in the MCU moving forward as we have now. I'm going to think the events of Infinity War and Endgame probably changed him a little. So it's going to be interesting to see. Again, it makes me nervous, but I'm just, you got Benedict coming in to play Doctor Strange, so I'm excited about that. All right, Devontae Brown writes, did you see that article about Mindhunter on Netflix? I tweeted you before the show. More bad, no good, very terrible news. I'm surprised to hear the show was expensive, being mainly driven by character work and interviews. No, I haven't seen the article, but let me just look it up here. We talked about 8 months ago that Mindhunter wasn't getting another season. Hold a second. What are they saying on the thing right now? David Fincher confirms the very expensive Mindhunter is done for now. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, this was basically revealed about 8 months ago, that it was extremely unlikely that they were going to get another season. So I've just sort of had it in my head for a long time that, yeah, Mindhunter's done. And you can tell it was expensive. Like look, every shot, they had to remake that world to look like it fit the era. That's always an expensive thing to do. So anyway, yeah, not really news. I mean, maybe Fincher's now saying it officially, but I mean, I've just kind of operated for the last 6 to 8 months under the assumption that Mindhunter was done. I know we've talked about on the show that how sad it is that we're not going to get it. Mindhunter is so good. Mindhunter is so good. Again, probably a show that would have benefited from a week-to-week release so people could build hype and enthusiasm, but whatever. It is what it is. It's unfortunate, but kind of something that we always knew was going to happen. All right, next up. Drive writes, Mike Doc Emerick announced his retirement on Monday for the voice of U.S. hockey for 50 years. Also on EA's NHL series. No more waffle boarding. At least we'll still have Pierre Maguire talking about big sticks while standing awkwardly close to others. Yeah, Pierre Maguire is great. He started on TSN. I grew up with all the Canadian voices of NHL hockey, right? All the way back to the days of Dave Hodge. Dave Hodge, Ron McLean, obviously the Reverend Don Cherry, stuff like that. Those were my voices. I read about Emmerick's retirement. I've certainly heard him before, but I just don't have that connection to him like I do with a lot of those other voices. But that was me. But whenever, I love the fact that we live in an era where the play-by-play, the voices of these sports get honored a lot. They definitely do that in LA, and it's kind of nice to see somebody in the hockey world getting that as well. Jalen Pryor writes, fun fact, we share birthdays, me and you, February 26th. Oh, that is a fun fact. And both dating a Filipina. Well, I'm not dating a Filipina. I am actually married to a Filipina. Question for Anne. So with the new Raya character being based on that background, what is she looking forward to, and what things in her culture does she want to see? My girlfriend loves, I can't answer that question. Anne's not here. I can't answer that question. Anne right now is only 2 rooms away from me because for the past 7 months, my wife Anne is now a senior over at Amazon. But because of the pandemic, she's been working from home for the past 7 months now, I guess. And she just works 2 doors over, but she's working right now. So obviously I can't ask her that question. I don't have the answer to that. I do know she's excited about the movie. She saw the D23 footage like I did, which was much better than the trailer. I didn't really like the trailer that they just dropped the other day for Raya and the Last Dragon because what they showed at D23 was so much better than the trailer they put out, frankly. So unfortunately I cannot ask Anne the question because she's not here right now, but I'll run it by her, see what she thinks. All right, final question of the day. Preston the Kryptonian writes, another great soliloquy I just thought of was David Wenham's character at the very end of 300. I get chills just thinking about it. He's got that voice as he's narrating 300, right? Yeah, that one's another good one. 300 is just, I don't know why. 300's just kind of fallen out of favor. It's not nearly talked about as much as I love 300. Narratively, it's fantastic based on the graphic novel. I thought the direction of it was fantastic. Just a great, fun movie with great characters and grrr. I love movies like, maybe it's the man in me, but I just love movies that got like really good grrr moments, right? 300's loaded with them and all of that. But yes, that is a great little kind of speech, but also all the narration through it, right? And just all his kind of, I guess the best way to call it is really narration, but I loved it. I thought it was great. All right, guys. That'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. As we wrap up another week, guys, congratulations for making it through to the end of another week. May you have a wonderful, fun, relaxing weekend ahead of yourselves, guys. And then we will, of course, be back again on Monday to pick up another episode of the John Campea Show. Robert will be joining me for that, and hopefully you'll be joining us too. Guys, remember, please, to do the 4 main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. Thank you so much for making this show part of your day. Special thank you to all you guys who sent in the live questions. Number 1, because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number 2, you supported the channel while you did it, and all of us here, thank you very much for that. That will do it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.